I was let's see, I was in Europe with Orr, and then I did a couple of run with Global, and then I recorded an album, my second album.
Oh shoot, what's that one?
That one is gonna be Global 2, uh
I'm
Exploration
excited already.
Hymns. So it's like, a little kind of like the church, like pretty much the same concept as Global. So it's like the history of sacred music and church,
Mm, right.
uh in the you know? So I'm
Wow. The history. That's a great way to talk. That's a great conversation to have too, man, because, you know, I was just having a conversation with Keon the other day, and,
hmm
he was kind of talking about how, like, all black music is sacred, and no matter like anything that's rooted to, even to the tree, like jazz and all the way up, like that thing that connects all of them is a sacred thing.
exactly.
What do you think about that? And you're making a whole album about that. I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I feel like especially when we talk about here, within the diaspora, I feel like musically we've always paid attention to the sacred aspect of the music, and also just historically, like in the continent, whenever I did with West Africa or Central or wherever, a lot of time, um the music is always tied up to concept of praising, of worshiping. And even here, it's still kind of like that. That aspect is always strong. And historically, I also feel like that connects all of us. Whether you go to, like, I don't know if you ever been to a ceremony, like a root ceremony. A lot of people call it taboo, but the first time I went to a ceremony, I said, this is like the Kojic stuff I grew up with. This is the stuff that I grew up seeing in Connecticut, people shouting, falling out. Except for we were told that's taboo because, they always attribute that music with devil worshiping somehow, when that's actually non-existent. Our ancestors have never so-called worshiped the devil. But ironically, in the Americas, because of I guess everything attributed to that, we always hear the word job. You see what I'm saying? Which mean devil, like it's kind of self-inflicted in our music. Whether you in, Haiti, Trinidad, wherever, you always hear, oh job, blah, 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 the devil's gonna eat you, for those that don't know. You know what I'm saying? So we've kind of like applied it to us, like whatever. That's what they call it. Well, we'll just call it that too. But when you go back to the roots, to the continent, there's no such thing. You know what I'm saying? Like our ancestors, they didn't know anything about that. Everything deals with nature and survival and kind of like ancestral worshiping, which we find here. And this is why I believe in this global thing, because we're all connected. I understand social politically, we always try to like, oh no, I'm different. But man, the black plight all over the world is kind of like the same. See what I'm saying? It's like the same issues, it's the same conversations. I'm just wish one day to have a table where we can all sit and kind of like go from there to the world. Like, okay, this is what it is. This is what identity is. This is where grandma, what grandma was feeling all this time, connected to its roots. And from now on, here, world, yeah, have at it. You're welcome. You know what I'm saying?
Wow,
So
man.
yeah,
Absolutely, bro. And that's so deep that, we start with this because this is kind of like where it starts, right? Because you had it even in the jazz world where people call jazz music devil music, where like there's been this kind of trend of like, demonizing like, the black cultural like traditions in a way.
exactly.
And
Right.
so like connecting that to even jazz and how, it could be looked at as like, wow, they're trying to put this kind of thing on the music or even on the lifestyle.
Right.
I'd like to even hear, in terms of, in our context, me and you being Haitian, and
Mm-hmm.
the voodoo, right? And
Right, right,
and
right.
the jazz and how that's looked at as a certain way.
Yeah, that stigma has always been there. Both you and I know, especially. I think you're coming from pastor's kid too, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So we know
No,
all
so
about that. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, you're gonna go play jazz. Oh man, that's But luckily, I feel like a lot of the generation, including here too, I feel like a lot of our parents are coming around. Part of it is also us not having that conversation with them. And I feel like I can say my I've seen my mother come completely around. Like January, I took her to the jazz cruise. She's rooting for everyone now. She knows all the cats, all the names. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember, big shout out to Samar when she went. She was like, "Oh my God, I saw a jazz cruise. Wow, now she's a Grammy. I have a picture with her." You know what I'm saying? So mom is like, "Yeah, I know such and so." She can name drop now too. You know what I'm saying? Oh, Christian McBride. I saw Christian McBride is playing in Atlanta, something like, parents live in Atlanta. So she's like, so just to see her come around like that. So the cliche saying, where there's a will, there's a way. I think we should also have those hard conversations with, our parents and have them come completely around. One of the biggest gifts I felt like I give to my mother was taking her to Africa to see a lot of the things that's been stigmatized, and this continent, to see them in context, to see them in essence, and to understand the inception of these things, and to understand the result of colonialism on a lot of this culture, on this unique culture, you know. So I think it's also up to us, you see what I'm saying, to like start these conversations, not in a rebuttal way, like, oh no, mom, you're just, or dad, mom, dad, whatever parent, y'all just old, y'all don't get it. But kind of like, did you know that, our parents love history? Did you know historically, blah, blah, blah. Boom, tell me more. Did you know that? You see what I'm saying? Like when I was young, I think I was more like rebellious, like, oh no, well, you just don't know. Nah, with our parents, they kind of like the facts. Oh, did you know that Hispaniola is tied to New Orleans? You know what I'm saying? Did you know that this music is actually part of your culture? Did you know that historically, what happened, all the different things and the names and all the different connections with this music? I think they'll appreciate that. Like, oh wow, okay, I see, I see. And because I realize not just our parents or family, a lot of their knowledge of what they think we do in terms of like this music we play come from other people, things they've heard in general from that generation. And whenever there's, if they hear like there's a negative connotation that goes with the culture, they heard that. We're from a very communal, background. It's very community based. As you know, it's kind of like, oh, this is what's cool, we're gonna do it. This is not cool, we're not gonna do it. Hence the concept of soul. You know what a soul is? Okay, so some people will know like it's eso, where everybody kind of like it's part of like wealth building in the community, where everyone, you give $5 to someone like every week or something, and then someone get the first hand, and then the next person get that. This is how a lot of the immigrant communities build wealth. You see what I'm saying? And what I was the way I, what I was the intersection I was trying to create is that just like that thing is very popular, it started from somewhere, you know what I'm saying? And now it's like the cool thing that a lot of the immigrants do that connects them together. Like, oh, you're gonna have another ISO or Saul or whatever other names they have for it. Oh, I want to join. You see what I'm saying? So it's just just getting them acquainted with what we do, I feel like will help.
Man, that's beautiful to talk about too. I heard ISO. I heard ISO. I never
Yeah,
heard salt before.
yeah. Saul is what the Haitians call it. Saul. Saul, I
Okay, yes.
Saul. Yeah. I remember trying to start one on Facebook, like I want to say 10 years ago, maybe or less. I was like, hey, everyone, I have a new way for you to like, get to some money. And a lot of people knew it from different background. I had a friend, she's Irish, and she was like, oh, we know this. We do this in Ireland. All the Nigerians, oh, I want in. Oh, I didn't know you do that too. And like, people from all over the world. And it was just like a test. I'm always doing like tests to see like but yeah.
Oh man, that's killing. And I that's great to talk about too, and connect that to even. I remember we had a conversation when we were talking about how the cultural practices of Haiti, and how like it's built through chemistry, and some of the things like how you have a problem with your health, or you get a. I mean, we notice a lot of in a lot of island countries too, and also in Africa where it comes from. You take a certain plant and you boil it, or or you do a
Oh,
certain
yeah.
kind of thing,
Yeah,
like
connection
that
to nature. Sure.
connection.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, and to kind of like to break away the stigma of like, oh, like there's some like other worldly thing that's going on when people say that word. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right, exactly. No, it's all 100%, nature based. As I was told once in Benin, in French, and I translated, it was like referring to Vodou c'est l'art de vénérer Dieu à travers de la nature. It's like in English would be something like is the art of praising the creator, the almighty God through nature. Sure, for some of us, for us, we come from, Christian background that serves, that believe in Jesus, and so always feel like there's an intersection between that, because the story of Jesus in general deals with a lot of nature. And then if we want to take it back, to the question, um, we not only the diaspora in general grew up like, oh, you have a headache. I hear if you mix this leaf and that leaf, and you literally find that from like the South in America all the way to Brazil to the Congo. It's that same connection, bro. Like, okay, well, this leaf, especially now, I don't know if you noticed, but in Black American culture, a lot of this roots, I like to refer to roots, people call it traditional. Sure, it's the same. We all go in the same place. I noticed a lot of that roots culture is kind of coming back. I remember during the pandemic, like the my mother's WhatsApp, in terms of like all the remedies, I saw kind of mirrored my timeline a little bit. I saw a couple of friends, from were kind of like, yes, I hear if you take this and that. I say, wait a minute, not too long ago, those natural remedies were considered taboo, but now it seems like there's an appreciation or maybe an understanding for a lot of it. There's an appreciation. People, I guess, have acquired a lot more knowledge, and it could also be like where we're at an impasse, where a lot of people are looking for of other ways, other ways to tap into praising God, or for healing, for mental health. You see what I'm saying? So we're kind of like at that impasse where it seems like it's going somewhere. So we'll see. But I definitely seen the growth. You see what I'm saying? From like that traditional concept of, okay, these leaves, this nature, understanding nature, preserving nature, caring about nature. That's it's been accepted more and more.
Yeah, man, and that's beautiful to talk about, and how we can connect that even to the music, and how us being from Haiti, and Haiti has a really strong history, and that connection to the world, and
Mm-hmm.
also even in jazz music, and how in its inception, and how Haiti has also influenced the music that we've come to love, as jazz musicians. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there could be a sense of not even truly knowing how much influence you know,
Hmm.
that Haiti has had on, you know, the inception of, you know, the
Hmm.
music that came out of America. You know, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that too, and you know, and the spirituality and all that good stuff. You know,
Well, you know that Pauline Jean, I have done shout out to her. We've done
Pauline
extensive
John.
research.
Yep.
We both went to Berkeley, you know, together at the same time. We were kind of like beginning to tap into what it meant to be Haitian American and what it, you know, means to start checking out the music. And at the time, there's a great trumpet player, man. You need to check out. I need to connect you with Maestro Maestro Eddie Buissot. Have you heard of Eddie Buissot? He's like a legendary Haitian trumpet player. Big shout out, man. He just wrote a book. Got to plug it on the history of compas. There's a
Wow,
lot of
I checked it out.
I've had, you know, some of my students at Berkeley that inquired about compa. Check it out. This cat wrote in there. He's a trumpet player, legendary, man, and he's like a mentor to me. So I remember he has a van, right? I wonder if he still has it. So one of Master Eddie Buissot's hustle was this van that went from like the East Coast all the different Haitian communities. Like he would give you like the latest CDs, everything that's happening, right? Like, okay, check this out, check that out. So he hit me up for a gig in Boston, I think around like '05, '06 ish. And I was like, cool. So I met up with him in Boston, and then I went into the van and he's like, oh, Godwin, here's a couple of things I want you to check out. Check out this cat. And I was telling him, man, I want to check out like some killer music from Haiti. It was like, okay, man, check out this cat, Mushi Wiedmeyer, you know. And My World, I think is that the album is called. And This for And My World, Maestro Mushi, another one we gotta connect you with. And I couldn't believe like when I was checking here, I was like, man, this is really killing. Not good. This is wow. There's somebody from where we're from playing music like this. From improvisation to arrangement, to everything. So I kept on playing it. I remember taking it back to Berkeley to be like, yo, Pauline, and shout out to Claudia too. It was like four of us over there at Berkeley. It's like, yo, Pauline, check this out. This is what's going on in Haiti. Like, this is the kind of music these cats are playing. Look, check out the arrangement. He would take like some traditional tune and completely do it the way you and I would like, harmony heavy, but with like the tench, with that IT tench. So from there, started looking into things, and then the icing on the cake was when I moved to New Orleans for what was formerly known as the Monk Institute, now the Hancock Institute. Moving to New Orleans, I always tell this story. It's kind of like redundant now, but I remember my first day. I literally felt like I was in Haiti. You know what I'm saying? From like the concept of the bands, funeral, like playing for the funeral, the kind of hymns they would play, just a closer walk to thee, the history of the city, the cuisine, red beans, like red beans, that's so spot, and then learning more about the history. So that kind of like encouraged you to look into the history. And then of course there was a connection there, you know what I'm saying? And the connection was during the Haitian Revolution. But first, one of the history people forget is that I believe in 1775 or so, in the 1770s, the Spanish also occupied New Orleans. People forget the French were there, but then the Spanish occupied New Orleans, or that region, from the late 1770s until about 1799, right? So that's also an important element, and now understand. So there's always been kind of like whenever one try to present the idea of like the Haitian connection to New Orleans, there's always that kind of pushback. Like, wait, the Spanish were there too. You see what I'm saying? And that is true. However, if you move like if so historically, we know during the revolution, 1770s, 90s rather, the Haitian Revolution, we know about 30,000 people left the island, including the bourgeois of color. Their fancy name for them is affranchis, right? Meaning free person of color. And they move there, and of course that's going to affect the culture of any place. See what I'm saying? But in addition, something that a lot of people don't talk about historically, that in my research, of course, I've done extensive research in this, that also changed the African diaspora demographic too of New Orleans. Because prior to that, you would have that Senegambian American, the Senegambian connection to Africa, right? Because we know that in the US, the British or the English in general, their monopoly in terms of like grouping up the slaves to America, a lot of them would come from that region, Senegambia, even modern day Sierra Leone. There's a heavy influence on that. And then some Ghana. But for the first time, I feel like during that revolution, because some of the slave owners left with their slaves to come here. And I feel like that for the first time we find that Congo influence. And then the other thing we know, and this is written, there's a lot of writing about this, scholarly written article, because a lot of people want scholarly proof, that talks about how much culturally, you know, New Orleans changed, because now you have that Congo influence, and we know that the French had monopoly on the Congo. I'll send you a dissertation that this cat wrote that's kind of brilliant, showing you the difference between like the different kingdoms in Africa and what they brought to the Americas. And so all those Congo people by the 1790s became the majority in the Caribbean. You see what I'm saying? Because the French would take them, from Bas-Congo region to Boma, the little island where they would be shipped off to the Americas, going to Brazil, to the Caribbean, and most of them landing, in Hispaniola. So I feel like prior to that, even culturally, when we look at America, even like north of that region, north of like, in the Mississippi Delta region, you see a different influence from the Congo. However, we know in Hispaniola, the Congos were the majority of the slaves. You see what I'm saying? And I feel like the whole concept of the inception of Congo Square, um, the Manibula, and a lot of those different styles and a lot of those different songs, a lot of them we were able to trace to the kingdom of Wally Christophe. Like there's a famous song, Elaba, they sing in New Orleans, that came from Henri Christophe empire. You know what I'm saying? Like literally traced it in Cap Haitien during one of my research. And so many other songs. And another big shout out to the great Dr. Michael White, who was like one of the only person I felt like when I was down there that kind of encouraged me to look into it. Like, man, look into the connection. Yeah, you're right. Based on my research, I know this and that, but you should find some. And, of course, because of, and then I realized, of course, because of Haiti's social political state, to associate anything with it becomes funny. And of course, you have diaspora wars where people kind of feel like, okay, well, no, I am this, my identity is that. But all we're trying to showcase, and for me, it doesn't even come from because that's my background. It was just because I moved there and felt that presence of that culture there so much. It was kind of like, I felt like my time in New Orleans was kind of like a renaissance, because, in the 90s, I also got to live in Haiti in the 90s, so to me, like in 2009, I was like, man, this is kind of like living in Haiti all over, except for it's in the US and people are speaking English. But it was like the same issues, the same, very similar, familiar ground, in other words. You see what I'm saying? So then from there, from those basic connection, we were able to go full on and find like, of course, then we know the Louisiana Purchase occurred because of Haiti, right? That's no knowledge. And then looking furthermore into during the 30s, some connections, because not even before that, like for instance, during the Harlem Renaissance, we know that a lot of people were aware of a lot of the sounds that were going on in Haiti. You see what I'm saying? So then, which something you and I talked about, the awareness of the great percussionist Tiwo and jazz. You see, and I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
searching that in Haiti. And another big shout out to T. Pascal. You know, he's well versed in that. I remember Pauline did a few interview with him. He knows a lot of it. You know, and remember I told you I was gonna find articles to bring to read to you in case people are like, oh man, this guy's just a fanatic of Haiti. But I want people to go out and find. You know, you literally can write. Max Roach and Tiwa War on Google, and you'll see like Max Roach giving Tiwa War love, you know, giving him a lot of praise. Like, man, I went to Haiti and check out this cat. There's an interview I just read because of you yesterday where Max Roach told Randy Weston, he was telling him stuff to check out, and he tell him, you need to check out Tiwa War, this cat from Haiti. You know what I'm saying? He's a hand drum percussionist. You know, so I was like, wow, look at that. And then, of course, you know, the later connection with Elvin Jones. When I hear Elvin, that undercurrent of the 3 and 4, what I call the Nago influence, I mean, that's straight up Nago in Haiti. Because the Nago, those that don't know, Nago is a tribe from Benin. So it's Yoruban people living in Benin are referred to as Nago. There's also a rhythm in Haiti because the Nago rhythm that you find in Benin is just triple meter. But in Haiti, it's literally and when I hear Elvin Jones play, that's what I'm hearing. And we know that he loved Tiwo. You know, you have even have word dedicated, you know, one for Tiwo, you know, so the connection is there. I'm saying I can go further, but I want these institutions to hit me up, you know what I'm saying? So I can present some of this stuff. And my finding, we have scholarly proof for, you know what I'm saying? Those that are like, well, where did you find this? Oh, check out this article. See what I'm saying? So again, it's not coming from like a fanaticism place. It's just kind of like history. I've always been a big fan of history. And I think those connections are very important. I've also always been interested in the idea of like inception, like where do these things come from? You know, from music to behavior to way of life to a lot of like the social aspects of life. And I think that musically, I feel like that helped me a lot in terms of like staying grounded and kind of like allowing me to tap into the culture and history. And it so happened, you know, that I very much tied in, you know, to this culture as griot. You know, I feel like so this is why I always share this information. Nothing is new under the sun. It's always important for, you know, for all of us to understand the history of things. I'll tell you, one of my latest research gave people a little hint. People are talking about it, but there's, um, I feel like maybe I was having the conversation with the great Jeremy Corn, you know, and piano player, bad dude, man. Shout out
yeah.
to
I
him.
know that.
I think it was with him. If it wasn't with him, then it's with some, but I feel like it was with Jeremy because he's a brilliant cat too, you know, thinker, bright dude. And I think it was with him. We were talking about, and I've been doing research prior to that conversation. There's another thing we're not talking about is the Native American contribution to the music we play, bro. The way we hear those eighth notes. I want to say maybe even with Orbar Ket too, and with someone else. I feel like I had that conversation, but I've been thinking about that. Um, you know what I'm saying? Ever since I met the great maestro Jack DeJohnette, I remember when we were in the institute, he came and I think he was working on like, you know, native connection to this music. Been looking, you know, diving more into it. And I think the way we play, the way we think about the eighth note in general, take it, 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 take it. But I think there's an intersection there. there's something that we need to explore. There's something worth looking at. Whoever is gonna see this, it's really something worth exploring. There's definitely the way, again, we're looking at the eighth note and some cultural things too, not just, in memory of the Cherokee, tune that Bird wrote. You see what I'm saying? There's an actual connection, because we know that a lot of our brothers and sisters of African descent that landed here also have that native DNA in them. That's a real thing. I know it's becoming cool where people from different movement, here, whether, the ADOS movement or FBA. I feel like sometimes people negate the truth within those movements, which is that there's a major connection between a lot of our brothers and sisters here with native culture. And I feel like we don't talk about or explore that, but it's all in our music, because when we're doing research, a lot of the research in our music, sometimes we're just kind of like making up for things. Like, oh, well, this sounds familiar. Oh, John Philip Sousa. Years ago, we heard a lot of, sure, there's John Philip Sousa's influence in the music we play, and New Orleans. We know that in the 1800s, that was kind of like the style and the culture. That was a cool thing to do. But it's a lot more worth exploring. You see what I'm saying? That will completely change the dynamic, the music we play, the inspiration, the things that we choose to write about, that will open up our minds to solutions. See what I'm saying? Because remember, we're at an impasse right now. We're kind of like, some of us are like, oh, I want to go here, I want to go there. But if we just revisit history a little bit, I feel like we'll get a lot of the answers. You know what I'm saying?
That's
I just
no. I didn't mean to cut you off there. What do you say?
yeah. No. Go ahead.
No, I was just connecting that to in terms of we're getting closer to figuring out more of where the things are actually like started or in its inception. I love how you talk about the inception, and even the fact that we know that this is that the music is some level of a melting pot, but it's even to what I'm hearing, it's like even more of a melting pot than we actually even really truly know. And it's like figuring out what are those, like connections that are
Mm-hmm.
creating, this beautiful combination of all these different influences. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is where we can truly find some of those answers we're looking for. Even when I heard you, singing the Nago, right? I even heard the swing ride, like just, in addition to the three, taka, taka, ding,
Mm-hmm.
ding, 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 ding. Like you can hear like how closely related it is, to the African culture, man. And I've been, learning some of those rhythms that Kweku Kweku from Guinea. He has like these like these Denimbe rhythms and like all these different like rhythms
Mm-hmm.
that can all teach us a little bit more about the music we play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's all there, man. It's yeah, the contribution is there, the history, all of it. Yeah.
So, when we connect this to music and how you having this like perspective on the music and a perspective about just music in general and its history, how has that impacted your music? And you're doing such a beautiful project right now. Global, the first Global came out. When was that?
I think it was 20, it came out in 2019.
2019. Got you. Yeah. And it's such like a packed project, taking you through so much different like, rhythmic sort of like I guess rhythmic sort of you can look at it as like a rhythmic worlds. You can even think about it like that too. Like because a lot of the rhythms that I grew up hearing, but it's like connecting that even to the music we play today, and how that all connects. Like
Mhm.
what's that like? How is that feeding your perspective, and how's that like feeding it directly into the music that you do today, etc.
I feel like today I'm just kind of like what I always tell the cats in Africa, just kind of bridging the gap And it's also like understanding who I am, understanding my DNA. I've done extensive research and understanding like, okay, I am American. I was born here, right down the street in Harlem, to parents from Haiti, that are really into the church, that love Christ, and that introduced us and made sure we understand what that meant. Okay, boom, there's that. Then you have the educational aspect, went to school here, got to travel all over the world, got to spend a lot of time in Africa, bonding and understanding and learning a lot of the culture over there, and understanding also my DNA. You see what I'm saying? Like, okay, so my people were born there. Then there's the Malian connection, the Congo connection, the Togo Benin connection. What does it all mean to who I am? You see what I'm saying? And the fact that I've been given this chance to meet those people, to communicate, to feel the rhythm there, to learn, to chant with them, to dance, to play my instrument. You see what I'm saying? And to like most always thinking of that. And so I think, of course, it has influenced me tremendously. But most importantly, I feel like the music that I hear or am writing is kind of like showcasing that history, the bridge that, like, there's a lot of the things that our ancestors went to, and I guess the division today in terms of like, I guess, identity politics of what we are, especially in the US. We're obsessed with race and all these different things. I'm just laughing because I'm thinking of someone, in mind that when I say these things, always check me. You know what I'm saying? Big shout out to Savannah Harris. Big shout out to Savannah.
Love
Uh,
Savannah, man. Absolutely.
and so for me, it's kind of like a continuum, bringing awareness to the continent. As you know, I've been spending a lot of time in the continent. Even, shameless plug, I have a jazz club there called the Godwin Rooftop in Lome, Togo. I need everybody to eventually pull up. The rooftop is at a 4 or 5 star hotel, with all the amenities, and my goal is to like be able to bring very soon. Um, so one of the
Bro,
goals,
that's
I
so
guess,
major, bro. That's
yeah,
so
yeah.
major, bro. I'm coming. Keep going.
Oh, but take you out there, man. We need to get you out there. So, I guess one of my goals is to continue to bridge that gap, man. There's a lot of incredible artists in the continent, bro, that are playing some stuff. And I'm saying, like West alone, South, there's a lot of super talented like sounds that we haven't that we haven't heard. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember, for example, when the great shout out to Master Lionel Loike, when he took this side of the world by storm. I know about 4 of the cats, man, that are ready for that, but they just don't have the, what I'm saying? They just don't have that connection. I'll shout some of them out, man. People will check him out. He's a great young fella, man. He's a trumpet player, but then he designed this like percussion instrument, like for him, like a bunch of drums together, and he plays it. You sometimes you see him. I post him. His name is Aklama. Bro, they opened for us last year at the grand opening of the Godwin Louis rooftop. And I remember, like, you can ask Etienne. They opened for us. I was like, bro, you see, told you, man, the music they play in the harmony. So geeking out on harmony. Um, to stay on shit, I know I'm saying a lot of stuff, but like, for example, when it comes to harmony, we always look at Africa like, oh yeah, they just play pentatonic, right? We never considered African influence on harmony, dominant chord, Lydian dominant, all of it. It's there. It's in the music. So, for example, you have a lot of people aware of like the Anchihoy, those are Ethiopian modes, and Basol, Tizita major and minor, the different Ethiopian modes. Ironically, you find those same modes, bro, and Togo, and their traditional music. Some might say in Vodou. So you find stuff like Do di da do do di do do da di do do di da da di do do. Da di da da do do di di do do da do 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 di da do 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 di do di da di do 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 di do. Flat seven, but you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, okay, hmm. And then if we're gonna form chords out of it, you're gonna get something that's outside of the pentatonic scale. You have a lot of dominant chords. In other words, I feel like we always looking at Africa for rhythm and not harmony when it's also there. So this is why I'm saying that band, they're exploring all of the rhythm and the heart, the melody they're making. I'm like, man, this band's ready for any major jazz festival, and people will just be like, what is this? With a brilliant singer, name is Tina G. Shout out to her, brilliant piano player. They're playing their music, bro. It's still rooted in our improvisation world, but it's their custom. And my goal is to bring them here, man. You know what I'm saying? And I know one spot, know one person. Shout out to Rio. Rio will welcome me at the Jazz Gallery with that band. This is why I love the Jazz Gallery, man. And all these shout outs are for a reason. So I want to make it happen, man. And I feel like do something there with that, different, stuff that's happening. And there's the cats in Ghana, there's Victor Day, Maestro Bernard Aisa. They're doing some amazing stuff in the continent. We just don't know. So I feel like a self-titled ambassador to bring some of that culture here. And then, of course, there's great things happening in the Caribbean, like all over. I feel like within the African diaspora, there's a lot of sound, that we not to negate in every, on the other, regions. All region matter, folks. For those that, want to come for me. But I just feel like there's certain places that need, feel like we only take from the continent. I go and write music and I come here and be like, oh, that was cool. Like, yeah, but there's these cats, man. Get them here. Get acquainted. So that's kind of like one of the goals now is to kind of like bring that awareness, take cats like you out there, meet some cats for your next project, man. I know some cats that, you know what I'm saying, that would change the way you were looking at your next project, that can play. They just, they're not, they don't have access. So we need to create access, my bro. And that's why big shout out to you for creating this, man, this platform. I've been checking you out. And the shed, important, man, very important for the culture, for the music, connecting cats with, you know what I'm saying, a lot of it, the harmony. A lot of us are into a lot of different things. So it's great as a community, especially today, this, you know what I'm saying? Like the music that we play, improvisation, have a lot of inside layers. You know what I'm saying? You might be like, okay, well, I know bebop, I know the language of Charlie Parker, Louis Armstrong, and then I'm like, oh yeah, come play my music. There's a different tension there. You see what I'm saying? Oh, go play this person's music. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of, we have that kind of global influence, 2023, I guess, postmodernism has a lot of inside the blues, it's still blues oriented, but then there's different accents, different routes of the blues. You see what I'm saying? So I feel like, and the shed is very important, and big shout out to you for, kind of bringing the right cats, man. I see you had some, all the cats you had, I'm a big fan of, and shout out to you, bro. Big
Hey,
shout
bro. Thank you, brother. That means a lot to hear from you, man. And you're one of those people for me that I absolutely love talking to, because I felt like I had so many great conversations with cats from New York. And that's kind of like what I want. I want for people to be able to hear this, not just after we do the gig and then we talk about these amazing things, because I feel like how it impacted me. I feel like other people can get that same level of knowledge, and maybe it'll help them come to a solution. So I appreciate you saying that, bro.
yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
And bro, trust me, bro, I'm ready to play with those cats. That's actually what I'm looking for, bro, because I
Yeah,
have this Album Dreamer thing I'm doing right now, and I just recorded the first one, but I got two more coming. It's like 3 parts. So
yeah.
I'm Haitian. I'm trying to have all of the kind of I want that influence to definitely be there as an islander. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
people, you know, a lot of the music that I grew up listening to, which is music from Haiti, music from the Bahamas, you know, music from Jamaica, just music from the islands in general, and then American, you know, I guess you'd call it, you know, jazz, black music, all that stuff. I'm heavily influenced by, and so creating those connections, I feel like you're on a mission, bro. Like what
Yeah.
you're doing is like so important, bro. And I feel like it's so great that I get to have this conversation and to, you know, kind of let people really open up their perspective about like the music that's out right now and where it's coming from, and to really understand that on a deep level, you know.
Right. For sure, man. That's really it. That's important, man. That's really important. We got a shed too, bro. We got to get, back in the shed. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Like,
exactly why we're here, bro. We're exactly here to talk about
I,
all of that stuff because you have a really interesting concept about music in general. And it's funny that I was going to ask you about rhythm from Africa and how that influences our harmony, and how rhythm being something that's like super important. I find that the way I like to put it, this is just my opinion, but like rhythm kind of sets or positions for makes position for everything else in terms of, if you look at the fabric of the music world, you know what I mean, like harmony, melody, and you look at how rhythm is somehow like creating that room or that stability for everything else to be, you
mhm,
know. You can't have melody without rhythm. You can't have, you know, and then you look at melody being like, you know, or harmony being like more than one melody, you know, happening simultaneously. Like you look at that being like a ladder, you know.
mhm, mhm,
It's like when I think about it, I look at it like a ladder, and how like me learning more about rhythm helps my understanding of harmony, helps my understanding of melody, helps me understand how placement, you know, can completely change the implications harmonically and implications melodically, right? Like how, where do you place rhythmically a particular melody that
mhm,
might create a certain harmonic tension
mhm,
because of
mhm,
where you placed it, right? Like
mhm,
little nuances like that, right, can really help people understand like how this music thing actually works, you know.
mhm. Yeah,
Any
yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, rhythm, man. That's been my world for past couple of years. Just thinking about it and like really understanding the history, especially from like an ancestral standpoint. And I've had a lot of discoveries over the years. For example, because I've been spending a lot of time in like Francophone West Africa, I should say specifically Togo and Benin. One thing I realized, uh, rhythmically, right? Because a lot of times I would bring some of like the stuff we used to, in the Caribbean, when you talk about our pito, when you talk about ragats or up tempo, that kind of thing, which you find more in Congo, right? The Bakongo rhythm, I call it Bakongo influence. However, in West Africa, I remember playing a show, man. Maybe it could have been in Benin or Togo, and the audience like was it? We're playing all these notes, all this crazy, like Caribbean and from global, they were not impressed by it. So then I had a conversation um, with one of my brothers out there, and he's like, "Man, you got to check out the history of the stuff we do." And I realized like everything is slower. You know what I'm saying? The way they feel the beat is slower, so fast is tied in with revolt. Also made me understand like my ancestors had to do a lot, went through a lot of revolt every other week, whether it's from Makandal, Negmaon, to, you know what I'm saying, to Dessalines, Bitron Toussaint. So of course I understand the Pitu and its birth in Port-au-Prince. However, I also understand like the other side too, the sacred side of like you use the word stable. I think like out here we use the stable downbeat. On a quick side note, I feel like the more I've kind of like got more into exploring rhythm from that kind of standpoint, from like an ancestral understand what the ancestors over there were dealing with, it messes me up when I have to come back here and like do sideman work, play somebody's odd meter tune, because the my concept of time completely changed. You see what I'm saying? And so like I feel like in my music, whether it's meter, it's still flowing. It's not a stable meter. If I write a tune and I don't know, whatever, Sewell, for example, the tune of the people, gang, 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 gang. But when I'm playing on that, I'm flowing. You see what I'm saying? You can kind of present your own sets of meter over it consciously, ancestrally, knowing or being aware of the 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2, because that will come naturally. But the idea is to create, to be free within that. You see what I'm saying? That's why I had to say that quick side note. But when I'm playing other people's music and it's odd meter, it's weird for me. It's like, oh no, no, you got to go back to like that American Euro, whatever we want to call it. Like, okay, you're playing seven, seven is it. But for me, I don't think odd meter. I create my own darn meter over what's odd. You see what I'm saying? So I had to add that as a now back to the store. So then I started looking into, wow, so the drums are tuned lower. I know this in Africa, and specifically in the Francophone and those two, when we talk about Dao and Tudu culture, modern day Togo, I noticed that, wow, so everything is felt slower. There's no stable downbeat, because I like the way you said that, and that's why I want to call it. And I feel like that's more influenced by Congo. I always tell people that we don't they don't dance the like here we like head bop, shake game for thing, gang or thing. There's a strong bounce, a stability to rhythm. But West is flowing titi kite ga kite ga ti gang 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 tiki dang gang gong be ding gang 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 tiki gong gang kitang kite kite gang tiki gang te kite gang dang gang 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 gang, and then it tied with dancing and movement, and they have all these words that, man, it's funny. We had this gig right recently at the gallery for, like, before the recording, and I had this whole thing I wanted to the whole band to go into. I was like, I think they'll fold. I wanted to, I think maybe that's too roots for them. You know what I'm saying? Imagine all the cats. I'm like, okay, now you go gite, 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 and the other one is like doing counter. So you have these rhythmic counterpoint. So one gite, 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 and then another person is going daiteke, you see what I'm saying? So we're not thinking of 1 2 3 4 5. We're just catching the vibe. You see what I'm saying? So I think when I'm thinking of common time, secret, that's how I'm playing on it. That's where my rhythmic sense come, and I'm feeling the beat like that. And you know what I'm saying? So I had to spend a lot of times going literally to the village, dance with the people, and notice it's not stable. It's not that boom, boom, they get ding, boom, they get ding, boom, 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 clap. You know what I'm saying? But which is killing. This is why I was talking about identity. So I grew up with that and have that boom clap in my system, in my blood. But I've also added that ancestral flow. So now it's like, what do you do with that? You see what I'm saying? How do you implement it? So, like, for me, in terms of improvisation, that's how I practice improvisation from like that rhythmic harmonic standpoint. Always been a big fan of harmony, and I see how I can flow my harmonic ideas over that kind of flowing nature, because I feel like that flowing nature to me is more grounded. See what I'm saying? And it's freer. It's freeing, bro. 4/4, what that? I'm free. Screw your meter. I'm flowing over the time. And one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed over, I shared this with one of my students, man, and that blew his mind. Um, I remember going to like to the Dahomey Kingdom, right? Abu Me, that's the place, and seeing people dance a dance called Zen Li, and the people would touch the floor, right, and then touch their heart, and then start flowing over it, the dance. And I'm like, yeah, the drums is kind of, I hear the three, but I don't see the dance, like the cohesive, stable thing that we know, like, it's, the shoulder moves like to their own kind of beat. And I was told that like that there's a intersection between your heart pulse and how you hear rhythm. And also to like the whole other concept that I'm exploring. We're not gonna go
This
deep
is
in, but I
this
think
is beautiful. This is beautiful to connect to, bro, because you started and talk about how, in the culture and the tradition, the music itself is actually reflecting nature. And you look at that flowing nature, right?
ex-
So you see how the flowing nature of everything around us, the waters, that being a flow, right? The nature in terms of the actual trees, flowing with the wind, right?
exactly,
Like all these like physical
exactly,
representatives
right, right,
being like actually put into the music or applied in the musical sense. You know what I'm
exactly,
saying?
right.
It's really deep to hear you connect that, and
Yeah,
that's how we should look at rhythm for sure. And that's how we should look at the sonic world, because it's a natural thing.
exactly. So when I'm there playing all this stuff, they're like, yeah, but we want to be able to dance over it. And they don't mean like, here we think, oh, I'd be there weekend. It's not that. There's a flow. Ding, ging, 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 ging. You know what I'm saying? You can flow over it. So it's kind of like, I feel like maybe we don't consider that enough. The dancing attribute. The ancestors here did, you know. Jazz have always been, Black American culture in general have always been tied into the dance. Hence, why we believe strong enough to it for like when it's tipping, you feel it, man. When it's tipping, I'm saying, nothing like that. But it to me it feels like a dance. The most tipping mofos, it's tough not to dance to it, bro. I think I lost you. I don't hear you anymore.
I
No,
was
I
saying
don't.
I love that
Yeah,
connection and how that all ties together.
yeah,
I think that really can answer so many like questions. And you look at the inception of jazz music and then that being a dancing tradition as well, right?
exactly.
So rhythm is so tied to the body and
Hmm.
and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember, man, like funny story to connect it and also to throw a shot. I remember like the good old monk competition, right? I remember someone commenting 10 years ago now, man, this kid just move a lot. So I went on a little experiment, like where I play and I don't move. I can't feel the rhythm, bro. I can't flow my movement when I'm moving to play, it's not a good. People look at it here from a lens of like you should, but if you see my movement tied in with the way I want to flow over the rhythm, which I see my ancestors do, you see what I'm saying? Like it's not like some like gimmick, like like you got the down and up motion, you have the, what I'm saying. For me, it's like, if I'm in like I don't know, any tune like I don't know. I was just trying to demonstrate, but there's a way I want to flow on a tune. You see what I'm saying? And I feel like certain body movement kind of like enables me to like tap into that. I lost you again.
Same here, bro. Same here. I'm not even kidding you. I had the
I
same
tried that.
experience.
I went to a
Yeah.
period. I'm like, okay. I'm not gonna move. I'm gonna play. All right. Okay. Sha dee dee beep beep, and be da be dee beep ba dee dum do be dee do be dee da da be do ba da da. Like, okay, I sound kind of like I'm spitting everybody else language, which is great, paying homage to the, as the maestro Peyton called it, the ghosts of the past. I'm paying tribute to the ghosts of the past. But then once I had the movement, I feel like now I'm connected to ancestry. You know, the rhythmic things change, the flow, the ideas. You see what I'm saying? I'm like, sha, double di da da, poda ti pito, pita ti ta, poda bobita, ti da do da hi, shabo da budi bati te te o bu pi ti da, do da da da, o do da ti, piti da do. P D ba da ba da di ba shi di ga shin gidi gang ging giding ga body da de ging gong ging. You see what I'm saying? It has to be there. Or else I'm just that's cool, but that's just not naturally what I hear, bro.
You know,
Oh,
and you can look at even some of our greatest influences. Look at Train. How he has that thing where, you know, he's going up and down. Look at Kenny Garrett. He has that thing
yeah,
where he's
yeah,
going up
yeah.
and down.
Oh, man, Kenny's
There's always some movement, bro. It's like,
Kenny in Finland last year, right? I was there with big shout out to Joe Ross at 40 Jazz Fest, maybe something like that. Bro, he caught a wave. I call it the catching a wave. I Kenny the GOAT. Big shout out to Kenny, man. Like that movement is required, bro. It's ancestral, man. Cats really think it's some gimmicky, man. If Kenny doesn't go to the ancestral bounce to catch that wave, none of us are gonna be blessed, bro. You know what I'm saying? The cat has blessed
exactly.
us for years. We're not gonna be blessed. I just wanted to add that in there because I remember reading, like, yeah, look at this guy. He just moved a lot. You know, that's what tapping into. Anyway, yeah. But you know, that's very important, man, because I know cats don't consider that, man. That it's all rhythm, you know. Rhythm is an important or rhythm, you know, important component to like essential, you know, to the culture, you know. As I always hear the masters say, bebop, the contribution of bebop are not harmonic, they're rhythmic. I've always heard that said, you know. Remember who said that, but you know, and it is true, man. When you're looking at all those syncopation, you know what I'm saying? That's bro, that's ancestral itch, man. I'm getting excited just thinking about what the ancestors has contributed to all of us heathens, bro. Damn. Yeah,
Man,
man.
it's so deep, bro. Man, I just want to say, bro, thank you so much, bro. You've blessed us with so much just now, bro. Like, you don't even understand how it's going to impact people, bro. Like, and I'm sure you're someone that always constantly, you know, sharing this with people that you know, meet. But I feel like connecting this and sharing this out to people will only help us, man, to really figure out what's really like, what are we hearing when we hear this music? Like, what is actually going on? Like, you know, and I think you have something very important, a very important message to share to everybody. And you know, you're someone that did so much research up to this point that, like, you know, we're forever grateful for someone like you, man.
Man,
Honestly,
work continues, bro. We got work to do. You and I, all of us, man. We got work to
yeah,
do.
bro. You gotta,
But
you know, work together. Yeah, man.
thank you. I'm honored, man. Thank you for having me, bro. And we'll wrap soon, bro. I need to, you know, outside
Oh,
of
we
this,
got a lot to talk about.
some
Yeah, man, a lot. So
yeah,
we'll be in touch, and you know, obviously, there's more to talk about on here too. So you know, we could probably set up another one of these. I know we
sure.
wanted to do something with Melanie and John. You know, Jonathan
Right.
Michelle, a
Let's do
Haitian kind of, you know, collective. Yeah, man.
let's do it, bro. I'm down.
Bro,
Let's do it.
thank you, bro. Thank you
Bro,
for your time. Thank you for sharing all your information with us. We'll keep this going. Keep this
all
going.
right, my bro. Peace and love.
Mon fouet, man. Nous là, nous là.
Nah, wait, all right, bro.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
N'a parlé, n'a parlé.
all right.